and welcome to another edition of Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. It's great to be back, but I trust Terry was great company while I was away. Well, special thanks to you, Terry, for standing in for me during my holiday. Just note that the reward for good work done is more work. To the matter at hand, the 1st of October each year is marked as Nigeria's Independence Day. It was the day we stopped being a British colony and became a sovereign state in 1960. 59 years down the line, it will seem that increasingly Nigerians are getting despondent about the country as a whole. From questions about the quality of leadership, to the unity of the country, to sectoral indices of health, education and security, Nigerians believe that they could be so much more and certainly deserve better. The question is, do we as a people still have the resolve to do better for and by ourselves and for generations to come? I pose this question and more to Babatunde Fashola, a senior advocate of Nigeria who has served and is still serving in a position of leadership. He is the current Minister of Works and Housing, the former Minister of Power Works and Housing, as well as a former two-term governor of Lagos State. Babatunde Fashola, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you were born almost 3 years after Nigeria attained independence, and you must have shared in the early days of the optimism of the country. I don't know if you did. I'm assuming that you did. When you reflect on your growing up years and what you hoped and imagined that this country will be, are you disappointed?
No, I'm not disappointed. I am continuously optimistic that Nigeria's promise will be fulfilled. The biggest concern I have is whether I will see that Nigeria in my lifetime. But I'm optimistic, and every time I have the opportunity to do something about it, I give it my best shot. And I think that people must understand also that the journey of nationhood is a very, very long and enduring journey. It requires a lot of sacrifice. A lot of people have made that sacrifice. Hindsight is always 20/20. Yesterday always looks better than today. But in context, let me say very, very clearly and categorically that we live in a much more complex world. We live in a world where we have a lot more information that is scary. We live in a world where information can also be manipulated. And we have lost essentially our innocence and some of our ignorance. And that used to be bliss. And therefore, you see a lot of bad news now. And the world has also changed. Globalization, information, technology, and things are happening at a quicker pace perhaps than they happened when I was 20. And it is even going to be faster and more rapid. There are going to be more changes for my children to deal with. And so it's not the world of 1960 anymore.
Let's focus on the positives, because exactly. When people talk about hindsight being 20/20, when they talk about the fact that there are complexities, maybe we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves. When some of our parents talk about the childhood that they had, the country that they experienced, the fact that they went to universities, there's a huge debate on Twitter about the full chicken generation that went to universities and had full chicken and had milk. And, you know, some of us went to the same schools and we don't know anything. We didn't even see the cafeterias, not to talk of, you know, full chicken. In that light, in that sense, there are huge questions as to whether or not we have progress. When you see universities churning out students that can barely speak English language, which is supposed to be the lingua franca of the country, there are huge questions to be asked about our education system. When you see that children are not able to go to school, basic education, much as it's supposed to be for everyone, it's not really for everyone. We have a huge population of children who are uneducated. Aren't there questions to be asked as to where exactly the hope, the optimism is coming from?
Yeah, there may be questions to ask. And you see, every generation claws back at its usefulness. It's the most pristine time of your life. So I am having those issues also with my kids now, telling them about my days in school. And I'm sure in another 20, 30 years, they'll be telling that to their children. So every generation claws at its youthfulness. But that said, with the investments that I see in the private sector, especially in tertiary education, which was where the gap is. Look, we just got into a bomb and a craze for degrees everywhere. So everybody wants a degree. Whether you are an artisan, you want that sense of degree has caught up with us, and therefore we have to do something. So you're talking about people now tell you, my son is graduating, and you say graduating where? He's graduating from primary school. We didn't talk about that in my time. So some things have changed, and our world is changing along those lines. But I think that history tells me, common sense tells me, that life itself continues to revolve. Dynasties and empires rise and fall. I think we have been through a difficult 59 years, almost half of which was spent fighting for the political and developmental soul of the country from the military. We now have freedom, so we must become adults in the room now, so there's nobody to tell us what to do again. And so you will see now that the real deal is there's freedom. How can Parliament, how can the executive, how can the judiciary now decide by consensus what is the developmental priority of the country?
Freedom is one key word I take away from there. But I also, which I will come to much later. Yeah. But let me take you up on the issue of when you say that you wonder whether you will see the Nigeria you truly desire in your lifetime. Yet,
no, I'm hoping I will see it.
Yes. Yet you're optimistic, that you're eternally optimistic. What informs your optimism?
Well, maybe I'm stubborn. And I don't believe anything is impossible. I have read the history of this country as a student. I have lived some part of it. I've lived 56 years of his life since I was born. I've also seen the history of nations, and I see what is happening around the world. Some of the great empires are stumbling, and Renaissance is heading towards Asia and Africa. And these are ancient civilizations in themselves. So they fell also into some kind of recession. But Renaissance will happen.
But would you say this is more of your mindset rather than what you see on the ground happening to inform the optimism you have in the future of the country?
It's partly mindset and it's partly experiential. You see, the Nigerian state has been kind to me, and it has also been mean to me. So,
mean to you? I'm interested.
Yes. Look, I've been victim of police harassment, brutality as a child. It has also been kind to me. It's given me some of the best education you can get anywhere in the world. It's also given me the highest privilege anybody can have, to serve his people. And so all of the things that I had complained about, I become duty-bound first to fix them. So some of the soft things that I try to do, make myself accessible, make myself reachable, is that the government must account to its people. But I'm also mindful that people owe duties to their nation. And it is to those duties that I spoke recently at the 80th anniversary lecture of the Ikoyi Club 1938. And some people perhaps felt I didn't cut enough slack on a Kedaba population. But a nation is about the sense of ownership, and it's like a baby in the hands of its people. And what do you want to do with it? So we owe duties to our state, but we spend a lot of time asserting our rights. But how many of us are even mindful that our constitution provides duties for us? So a duty to defend and project the image of that country. Our sportsmen do that. Our artists do that. But not enough of us do that. A duty to help law enforcement agencies. A duty to respect each other's space and each other's dignity and reputation. Not enough of us do that. A duty to pay taxes voluntarily. Are there enough of us who do that? The other duty is there in Section 24 of the Constitution. So these are things that we must also continue to begin to teach, because everybody seems to know his rights.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your privilege. The fact that you have been privileged to serve. You served as a governor. You solicited votes. You stood elections, and the people put you in office. They did it twice. And somehow you've been part of a political party that has been able to gain power at the national level as well. But let's talk about even the subnational level. A lot of people still believe that the system is rigged. I don't know how you got into politics, but I know that you were, the chief of staff to former governor of Lagos State, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and somehow you, from there, he anointed you, so to speak, to become governor. People still believe that you still need that godfatherism, measure or element to be anything in this country. And I think you spoke to it once. Some people believe that was the line between you and the previous governor, perceived to be your godfather. Do you still hold the view that indeed that position, not just the position of governorship, but that governance, politics needs to be thrown open without that element?
I think that politics is open up to a point. You see, even in real life, you see, so where did the concept of Godfather come from, really? As a pristine, original concept. It was mentorship, protection, and guidance. That's what it really means. Now, so if it works in other jurisdictions, it must work for us as well. And so,
how do you mean? The godfatherism as we practice it?
Well, it depends on what you say, how you practice it. I went through a primaries. All that was missing in my election, for example, was all of the candidates wanted the endorsement of the outgoing governor. So everybody wanted to climb on his back. And he said, look, I was only going to allow one person climb. So go to the primaries if you can defeat him. Face him in the general elections if you can defeat him. There's a there's a book that reveals a little more about the underbelly. So there's nothing really ordinarily inappropriate or detestable about the notion. First of all, people must understand Barack Obama was encouraged to run by Senator Harry Reid and late Senator Kennedy. And when they summoned him to that meeting in the Senate leaders' chambers, he thought he had done something wrong. They said, no, we want you to run. We want you to run against Hillary. And he said, will you back me? They said, yes, if you win the first caucuses, we will come out. And if you follow their primary system, right, they have what they call the superdelegates. They're endorsements of political leaders to say this is the direction in which we're going. And this is traditional. If you go back to ancient Rome, these things have their roots in how the democratic system and all of it work. So, but at the end of the day, right, the leaders of the party or an outgoing governor, an incumbent governor or whatever, who is canvassing votes for his successor, has only one vote on election day. He can't vote more than once. But he has served people. People defer and trust his judgment that, look, among the people who work with him, who is more likely, perhaps, to be able to continue what good services they think he has rendered.
Well, I do not know what.
But that doesn't ultimately turn out to be foolproof.
The conversation continues. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. Our guest tonight is Babatunde Fashola, SAN, the current Minister of Works and Housing. Just before we went on break, he was making a point on godfatherism, about to draw on the American example. talk about godfatherism. I know that there are different levels of, godfatherism. The former governor of Edo State, Adams Oshiomhole, was now the current party chairman of the APC. One of the things he likes to say is that he retired godfathers in his state. He retired godfathers when he became governor in Edo State. Yeah. And, he dismantled all godfatherism structures. However, you say that we cannot have politics without this set of godfathers, so to speak. The difference in your instance, and perhaps...
I said you see...
and the American instance which you have cited is that they are political leaders, no doubt. But then in Lagos, there is just one godfather who seems to, when he speaks, it is law. And you have spoken against that. Am I right or wrong?
I haven't spoken against what did I speak against?
I remember that. I think it was his birthday or so when you said, that the space has to be left open. And if I remember...
That was our internal politics, and I was passing a message from the leadership of the party. To that extent, you are correct. You see, at the end of the day...
It is his response I'm trying to remember, because he said something about that same system which you are asking him to dismantle favored you. Yeah. A lot of Nigerians still believe that you still need to be favored. Has it changed at all?
Look, listen, let's go back. Okay, so which person has won an election on the basis of I want to be? You need people to support you. You need people to endorse you. You need people to campaign for you, to mobilize for you. And to that extent, what is true of Nigeria at least is true of the United States. And it is true of every political environment that I have studied. You need those who have walked that road, right, on your day one, to lead you through. So it's like the same type of guidance you get on your first day on set. That was your day one. So, and you mature as you do more of it. And then in every arrangement of people anyway, be it a political party, a social club, whatever, there is an institutional hierarchy. Everybody can be boss. Otherwise, there will be no leadership.
So speak to what you are saying, that you are carrying the message of your party or political leadership to the then former governor of Lagos State, who is perceived to be the godfather.
No, well, I mean, those are matters, internal matters, and those are not things...
Which came out to the public, which was spoken in the public. And well, of course, there were lots of insinuations then, because you were leaving office and the successor was being...
That's not Nigeria, so we came to talk about Nigeria.
Of course, it's only part of the country. So
yes.
That's how that Lagos State is as cosmopolitan as it can be, and a lot of Nigerians look to Lagos. Oftentimes, if there is a reason to hope, that things are actually going to get better, oftentimes Lagos is cited as an example. Now, if we're talking about the political leadership, I mean, looking at how the politics is still played in Lagos, and we cannot say that it is a good example of what we aspire to. Aren't there questions to be asked?
Okay, the answer to that is that, you see, every politics is local. So how Lagos APC from ACN, from AC, from AD chooses its leadership has provided a measure of comfort for the citizens, and so far so good. They retain the confidence of the citizens, who, I acknowledge, continue to ask for even better services and a better quality of life, that the game be raised. Now, the opposing parties have not demonstrated anything that is even discernible as a pattern or a method for leadership, selection or leadership recruitment process. Now, what works for Lagos is not the same as what works for other parts of the country. And that is why you will find out that Lagos perhaps is probably the only state, or one of the few states left, that haven't been governed by any other tendency than the progressives. Many other states have changed hands with results that are there for everybody to form his his own impression. But it is a challenging environment. You need experience, like on every job, even football.
That's the environment of politics or whatever?
Even football, every endeavor in life, experience matters, and you need people who have walked that rope. You see, so that's why even when you watch football, you see 19, 20-year-olds carrying the burden of a club to be goal scorer. It's a lonely place to be. It's a tough job. And the best clubs who get it right is to blood these young boys with some experience close by. And I've used the example of your own job too. There is no profession. It's like bringing a young man on day one to skill training. He just needs to learn.
The difference is oftentimes we do not know whether the people that are supported by godfathers are the people who actually have the competences. This young talent which you speak of in clubs, I mean, have been proven, they have been seen that they can deliver the goods. All they need is some form of encouragement.
Not all of them make it, unfortunately.
Even on my job, I mean, very rarely would you see an anchor retaining his or her job if you're not good at what it is you do.
Very good. Now, the point is that the examples are not match for match opposite, but the concept is the same. Not all of those young sports make it. Not all of those who start broadcasting also make it. Not all of those who are endorsed by any leader also do well. And there's a process to mobilize support again to say, take him out or take her out. So and you have to understand that, look, listen, that leader or those set of leaders have one vote. And whether the person will do well or not is a function also not just of the leader, but of democratic institutions like the media, to organize debates, to organize interactions. So in my own time, in the first time, I think I did 11 debates. In the second time as incumbent, I did 7 debates. And people were able to see through all of those who were contesting the space with me, who they thought, and I assumed that they thought I was better prepared, I showed better understanding of what the problems were, and that was what won me their vote, because the endorsement is one thing. At the end of the day, the voting public are more than registered members of the party.
You have disagreed that system, though, yes, it might be needed, but it is not a sustainable system. We will continue to lose our talent if we continue in that system. Don't you agree?
Look, listen, let us watch what is happening because the process that presents the candidate is what we're dealing with here. The party representative is an internal family process of members of the party. Once that candidate emerges, it's actually out of the hands of the endorsers. It's in the public space. So no party has 23 million voters. None. So it's for the public to then choose what is on the shelf. And you, as a platform for expression, for interrogation, schools, university campuses, interest groups, civil society, Christian and Muslim religious groups. I remember then the Anglican Communion organized debates, the Ansaruddin did. We went to the Lagos Business School. I remember in my time the Chamber of Commerce Manufacturers Association, and so many like that.
Well, that's all we can take in this edition, but do watch out for the concluding episode. While you do, what are your thoughts on your country, Nigeria? Do you still have a zeal to work for it, or are you losing that zeal? Do share your candid thoughts with us using the handles on your screen. We will take as many as we can when we conclude this interview. Thank you for watching tonight. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Good night.